There we go again. Welcome to one more session of Smartlead Office Hour, beautiful people. My name is Akash, your friendly customer success manager here at Smartlead. Before we dive in, you all know the drill. Please drop on the chat where you're from, the temperature in your city, and also let us know if you're an agency, a freelancer, or a SaaS company. We'd love to know. Again, center bottom, chat, get the chat buzzing, please. Waiting for the first message. First one gets a free smart server. I was lying. New York 56, New York, laptop lifestyle in Costa Rica. Lovely. Keep it coming. San Diego 60, Minneapolis, Fawad from Karachi, UK cold. Jacob from New York, Manila, humid night. Kind of a humid night here as well in Coimbatore, India. Love it. Keep it coming. Keep it coming, ladies and gentlemen. But about today's session, the topic we're going to cover is outbound is pretty simple, right? Often something we see is outbound teams go for over engineered workflows, layering tools that don't talk to each other. And in most cases, people also think more tools equals better outbound. But guess what? That's not the case. And that's why we have Wesley here. Wesley is going to show us how simplicity is going to help you scale your business and why mastering three tools can outperform teams running close to 10 or 10 plus tools, right? And a little bit about Wesley. Wesley Hoang is a co-founder of Cymate. He's going to break down his Outbound Trinity. It's basically a simple, scalable system built on three tools that can send millions of targeted personalized emails every day. He's going to show you how to build, manage, and optimize an outbound system that balances automation, creativity, and performance without overcomplicating your stack. Wesley, over to you, sir. A quick round of introduction, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Akash, for the absolutely fantastic introduction. Yeah, super excited to be here today and just share some of the knowledge. Um, Funny thing, I was just gonna complain how cold it is where I am, but then I'm seeing all the chat like it's like 14 degrees, and I was like, you know what? I'm in California, it's 60 degrees, so I should not be saying anything. It's a lot more rough out there. So stay warm, everybody. Winter's coming. But yeah, excited to get started. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully I get this right because I'm a Google Meet person. So Zoom is
Let's
a
go. It's all right.
bit of a new
And
territory.
while you do that, for those of you who are here, the session is going to be recorded. It's going to be out on Smartlead's YouTube and Slack community as well. So just an FYI, Wesley, over to you, sir.
Mm, okay, cool. Next time we should do Twitch too, so that cross out my bucket list to be a Twitch streamer.
Pleasure.
Okay, amazing. So yeah, I thought about what kind of topic that I wanted to do today, and glad to see that there's a mix of agency owners, there's a mix of, like founders in here. So got a chance to really cater the sort of presentation slash demo today toward like both side of things. So hopefully I was able to give out some values whether or not you are a founder or whether or not you are an agency owner. Um, yeah, so today topic is, like as Akash mentioned, I want to show you three of the, in my honest opinion, three of the most powerful tool when it comes to code outreach. And spoiler alert, you're in this call because of Smartlead. One of that's gonna be Smartlead. What I want to do is kind of really break down more on like the context, why I chose these tools and the importance of it. One thing I would not deep dive into it is the tutorial, the demo type of thing, right? Because if not, it's gonna take me like 5 hours for just one single tool to show you how it works. So just gonna walk you through a very high level just to make sure you understand how powerful it is. And then, yeah, if you have any question, feel free to drop in the chat or I have some time at the end too, just in case. Sweet. So let's go right to it. The agenda of today is I want to give you a bit of a background, who I am, what kind of agency I'm running, and like how did I even, like come up with these three tools. I'll walk you through the Outbound Trinity, which is the three most powerful tool in my honest opinion when it comes to outreach as of 2025. Show you a bit of a demo, very slightly, just to get you good context on what they are. And then I want to show you one secret Smartlead features that most people are not using. And this might potentially fix your deliverability forever. Fix mine, so hopefully fix yours too. Cool. Shameless plug before we get started. If you are a GTM engineer or if you are an agency owner, my agency Cymate is hosting a GTM Invitational later down this year. Super fun. Got tons of guest speaker, got tons of prizes. So don't want to talk so much about it. Don't want to take so much time. But if you're interested, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I'll drop more details, in this upcoming weeks. All right. A bit about me. That's me. Wesley Hoang, who gave me that nickname myself. So,
Right.
just a bit of background. I was an ex-software engineer at Apple, Twitter, and Cisco. In 2021, I started a company and exited that, with just code eval, right? And then around 2022, I started an agency called Cymate. Funny enough, originally we were a QA automation agency because of my automation background. So we were not doing anything like go to market, cold outreach. And essentially just kind of thought to myself, how can I get customers for my agency, right? So did a lot more cold email, same thing I did for my other software company, and eventually start pivoting Cymate into the kind of agency that we are now, which is a go-to-market agency, have a lot of focus on automation and things like that. Um, we are currently at 1.5 million in terms of revenue in 2025, 21 plus full-time team members serving already over 100 clients. Currently, we have about 40, 45 active customers. The reason why I'm telling you all this stuff is because as a founder, of course, one thing you might be resonating with this if you're a founder too, is I constantly think about scale, right? How can we scale? And one of the biggest issue when you scale is you lose the quality, right? 100%.
Right.
Whether it's the type, whether you're doing service, whether you're scaling your development, whatever it might be, right? When you are like a freelancer, you're working yourself personally with, like one or two customer, the quality of work is a lot higher. But as I grew my team, I had to start thinking about how can I replicate the success that I had as a freelancer, right? And start coaching my team. Yeah,
Wesley,
so
just a
that
quick
was
one. Just a quick one. If you can, I think the volume is a
yeah.
little bit low. If you can just keep the mic a little bit closer, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay. Give me a second. I know that every time I do Zoom, this happen. Let me adjust my input volume. How about now?
Ah, lovely. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I put it maximum. So if it gets too loud, let me know. Okay.
Love it.
Okay. So yeah, one of the issues that we were facing is how can we scale the team? How can we scale as customer, without, losing the quality, right? Um, And it does work, right? And
Right.
obviously, I'm not going to be here trying to convince you like coding mail works or not, but here just like a few statistic for ourselves, some of our clients. You can kind of see that, in 2025 itself, we book about like 700 meetings for our agencies. This is like including some months that were not even running cold outreach at all, right? So some months we were like pausing, some months we ran into like slight deliverability issue, that kind of stuff, right? Client number one, client number two, some clients are, like looking for more sign up instead of meetings. So we can see that we usually get like thousands of like positive replies, right? Leads within like 1 or 2 months, right? Crazy data, right? So
Absolutely.
tell you now, cold email does work. And if you scale it smart, it works quite beautifully. Um, Bit of more context too, but aside from like direct sales, you can do a lot of things with cold email, right? You can try to reach for partnerships. You can also do M&A, right? We help companies, do merger and acquisition all the time. And most importantly is market hypothesis, right?
Right.
A lot of business, they wanted our help, not necessarily because they wanted more sales, that kind of stuff, but what they want to do is really find product market fit,
Right.
right? Once you find product market fit, once you find the right value proposition for a certain market, you can literally scale indefinitely, right? So really you can use cold email just for insight, and the cost of that is a fraction of, let's say, like running ads or whatever it might be, right? Cost and speed, that
True.
kind of stuff. But obviously you have to do it smart, right? Um, this is maybe like a funny photos, but I before I started the agency, obviously I attended a lot of like seminar, and then like everyone was talking about ads and all that kind of stuff. And it's like you run the ads and then you point them to like the landing page, and then they do this, they click through this, and then they finally get a call, and then you send a follow-up and then whatever, right?
Right.
Cold email, you send an email, get into your car, you close them. I had a conversation with one of my friend earlier this week. He was like, "What software do you use for landing page? Do you use like Go High Level?" And I was like, "Landing page? What is that?" I have like the agency website, but other than that, code email is supposed to be simple, right? It's simple, it's easy to set up, it's easy to get things going, it's easy to scale, right?
100%.
And as you scale, that has to be your mindset, right? It cannot get complicated, right? There's a lot of I guess like what do you call it? There's a lot of like distraction in the space, right? There's a lot of like high intent tools, all that kind of stuff, which great, which you might need sometimes, but the basis of cold email is if you haven't figured out like what works for you first, forget about all that distraction, right? Figure out what is the right message for your product, figure out what is the target audience, how can you get like a big list, how can you go after a bunch of people. After that, you can start thinking about like what kind of creative campaigns we can use, right? But ultimately, cold email is supposed to be simple. Um, Simple, not easy, right? This is a very great quote from Hormozi that I want to put it in here. Simple, but not easy.
True.
Cool. So, before we move forward for today's topic, I'm going to dive a little bit more into the copywriting and operation aspect of thing. When it comes to cold outreach, I like to kind of think of that as there are four different key pillars. So infrastructure, targeting, copywriting, and operations. I recently had a podcast. I was a guest in GTM School of Engineering. So if you want to listen to me dive more into each of these four pillars, really recommend it to check out that episode. But for all the technical founders out there, if you're like, what the heck is all these four pillars? If you have like an engineering background, it's basically DevOps, backends, front end, and QA, quality assurance, right?
Right.
Um, if you do engineering, you know that every single one of these pillars is going to be important, right? You got the back end right, but the front end looks ugly, it's not going to work, right? Back end, front end's good, but your QA team is like slipping through the crack, they're not catching bugs, still not a good product, right? So every single cold email expert, every single cold email agency is going to tell you the same thing that every single one of these pillars is going to be very important, right? But for today's call, I'm not going to dive much into the infra and targeting side. Copywriting and operation is going to be something I want to focus on. However, I would like to bring up that if you want to really simplify it, you can actually use Smartlead to really take care of the infrastructure and also the targeting itself. Because if I remember correctly, you guys just launched a smart prospect recently,
Yes,
right?
sir. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. A bit of a prefacing. So this is gonna get a little bit more, I would say, technical. This is one of the concepts that I learned from two of my closest friends, Levi and Rob.
Right.
Basically, it's the whole concept of market awareness, and I'm sure they learned it from somewhere else too. So before you know, like launch any GTM campaign, one of the few concepts that you need to understand is how aware your market is when it comes to your product, right?
Right.
And usually there are five different level about it. The market is either unaware, problem aware,
Hmm.
solution aware, product aware, or most aware, right? Unaware is somebody who doesn't even know they have a problem, right?
Right.
Think if you're running like a software, whatever it might be, right? Your customer is not happy, but let's say you're still kind of new, you know, like not collecting customer data, you don't know that problem exists, right? That's basically unaware.
Right.
Problem aware is they know they have a problem, but they doesn't know there's a solution, right? That's like me. I'm basically looking for like an AI accountant, that kind of stuff, right? Because it's taking me so much time doing it myself in agency,
Right.
right? But I don't know the solution out there. And that makes sense. Solution aware is you know you have a problem, right? You know there is a solution out there, but you don't know which product, right? Similar idea. I wanted to sort of like bring in like a AI, what do you call it? Operation manager, whatever it might be. And I know there's a tons of tools out there that can help us, right? But
Right.
I'm just don't really know which one's a good fit. Product aware is they know about your product, but they're not sold. Maybe there's some, you know, like thing that they're not a fan of. Most aware is they know the product does work for them, but they might have some objections like pricing, whatever it might be, right?
Right.
Um, I like to give this example. Think like Apple iPhone when they first started. right?
Mhm.
When they first launched, right? Nobody knew they have a problem where, their phone cannot browse the internet, they cannot check email on their iPhone. Nobody cares,
True.
right? But I think Steve Jobs did an amazing job in like really ingraining that into like other people's brain, like, hey, look, like that is a problem, right? He was able to convey the idea, and get the product, get the market, like excited about it, right? Reason why I'm saying that is, um, if if your market is somewhere like between these three right here, like you can literally make any claim and it will work, right? You could say that you have an AI that, will make your business like explode, like 5x in the next 5 years, whatever it might be. And let's say this is like early 2000, right?
Mhm.
People was gonna buy, right? And
Right.
as you start going toward, like the market when they are most aware, when they are product aware, let's say like cold email, for example, right?
Mhm.
Everyone is kind of know there are like lead gen agency out there. They know there's a cold email agency out there. Now you're gonna have to do a bit more of like convincing on why your product works better than the next guy.
True.
If that makes sense. So really depending on how aware your market is, this is when you might have to kind of adjust the copy. This is where you might have to do whether or not we want to rely on volume, so do we want to be more targeted when it comes to, like reaching out to the right people.
Right.
That makes sense.
It does.
Um, the next concept I kind of want to walk over is demand capture and the demand generation. So very similar to the previous concept. Demand capture is essentially an offer that somebody will buy only if they are already looking for it, right? So think recruiting, think cybersecurity, right? You wouldn't care about recruiting, or, like myself, I wouldn't care about recruiting if, let's say, I've been doing layoff for whatever it might be for the past few months, right? If my company is not growing, why would I care about a recruiting service, right? So unless I am actively growing my company, you can reach out to me and tell me that, hey, want to buy my recruiting service? I might say yes, right? Same thing to cybersecurity, right? I know we have like an AWS issue like a few days ago, but if that was never happened, like if I don't have any cybersecurity issue, right, why would I care about any kind of cybersecurity product?
True.
That makes sense. So demand generation is the opposite, right? Something that you can create demands for, right? Something like lead generations. Every business need leads, right? Ads, personal branding. Everyone wants to, become like an expert in the space, that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
right? So the bottom line is first understand how awareness your market is. The second is to really understand, be aware of what your product can actually offer. And a lot of the time, the answer is just volumes, right?
Right.
So it's very easy if it's very easy to sell if your product is somewhere in the demand generation offer space. But let's say recruiting, for example, right? Maybe not recruiting, let's say cybersecurity, right?
Mhm.
Um, if you're not able to get the right data to really go after the exact target audience, really, the answer is just volumes, right? You just want to go after everybody, right? And hope that one or two might stick, right? Rare cases, that's something you just have to do, you know? So I know there's like a huge debate between like in the community, like whether or not volume's the answer. Some people say like, no, small targeted email is better. Some people say no, high volume is better, blah, blah, right? But to me, it's really case by case,
Fair enough. Makes sense.
right? So yeah, sometimes you want to make it work. Really, the answer is just volumes. So that's why you want to scale small. So there we go. That leads me to the core topic of today, the outbound Trinity. So, um, of course, in the past, again, just want to reiterate that for the past, like few months or so, as we are scaling an agency, I've been obsessing with system. Like I've been obsessing with how can I scale email? How can I scale volume? How can I scale clients? How can I scale team members? Why preserving the quality of my work? Right? And these are the three tools that help me get there, right? And if I was to have to start over, I don't have any budget, I don't have anything, and I can only use three tools, this will be it, right? I got
Right.
tons of case study to prove for it. I helped exit a bunch of companies. I got case study, all that kind of stuff, all documented, right? Has already been proven. So um, I want to dive a little bit into these three tools. I walked you through a very, very high level of what they can accomplish. But of course, again, I'm not going to deep dive into a complete tutorial. So any question you have, feel free to drop in the chat and I can elaborate more. Start with Octave. Definitely the most underrated out of the three. Not a lot of people talked about it. I think they've been around for since 2022, 2023.
Mhm.
Essentially, think Octave as an SDR agent that could research, the prospect that you're reaching out to, and help you personalize your message,
Right.
right? Um, a lot of people would consider Octave a copywriting tool, and to be honest, I do too. The cool thing about Octave, or like li really literally any single copywriting tool, is it works, it's great, only if you understand how to write good copy,
True.
right? No copywriting tool can save you. If you're bad at copywriting, nothing can save you,
Absolutely.
right? And the analogy that I would love to give is think of sport, right? Soccer, basketball, football, whatever it might be, right? You could really be a good fan. You really know what makes a good player, what makes a good team, right? But at the same time, if you are on the field, you might not be a good player,
True.
right? So for every single copywriting tool, if you want to make it work, you have to understand what makes good copy, right? You don't
Right.
have to be good at writing it, but you have to understand why is it good, right? And there's tons of Smartlead Office Hour that talks about how to write good copy, so I won't deep dive into it. But ultimately, what Octave does is you give the AI agent like an instructions on like, hey, like when you write a copy, this is the few points that you make sure you consider. You give it like a copy example, right? Like what kind of message you want to run.
Right.
So, for example, let's say I have a product that can, like generate copy that can help resonate with the ICP, right? I write one single message, something like, "Hi, John, my company Cymate builds a product that generates copy that resonates with the ICP," right? Not a
Mm.
great copy, right? Very generic, right? But let's say you plug in the AI, and when you reach out to, let's say, like a marketing director at Nike who was supposed to be in charge of like the pickleball division, right? It
Right.
will automatically turn my message into something like, "Hey, Jack, companies I may build product that generate copy resonates with pickleball players since you've been running those ads targeting them." So what Octave is doing is it read my message, it understand my product, and when I'm reaching out to some guy who is, let's say, like a marketing director in like the pickleball division at Nike, it will go out there, do research about my prospect, see what they are doing, what company do they work to, gather as many contacts as it possibly could, and then it will adjust my message to make sure that it's catered to that person.
Wow.
Yeah. Some idea, right? Let's say you're reaching out to somebody who works at Pepsi, right? It would adjust the message to something like, "Hey, Mary, company side may build a product that generate messages designed to resonate with new retail partner, considering you were recently hired to expand into new stores." Right. So it does research on the person, how long ago they've been joining the company, does research on the company, all that kind of stuff.
Right. And one
Yeah.
question regarding the same, Wesley. So
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation for them to have with Octave, but on a high level, Octave's core plan kind of has 4,000 credits. So I think people will want to understand how the credits work for messaging. So do you have an high level idea approximately?
Yeah, of course. Great that you asked that because I do got a little Octave demo.
Right.
They just redid the UI, so I'm still like playing around with it. So bear with me. But yeah, Octave does have like a credit system. You can use whatever tool, whatever you want. I think these are the three models that they have, one, two, or three.
Right.
Really depending on how much you want to personalize your message, right? Let's say you want to do a lot more research on a prospect, then you might want to go with something like Echo Harmony. If you just want something like a simple personalization, right, just to kind of make it sound like you did some research on a prospect, you could probably get away with Pulse. In my honest opinion, I like to usually stick with the one in the middle. I think it does a good enough job while you can like preserving some credit to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you for
But
that.
yeah, of course. So yeah, let me kind of show you how Octave really work on a very high level. So you go to Octave, you set up your product, you tell the agent, this is what my product can do, this is the value proposition, this is sort of my competitor, this is why I'm better, blah blah. Right. So you set all of that up. And then what you would do is you would give it like instructions, right? You would say like, hey, when you write a copy, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. Then you give it an example, right? So for this case, I just want to give you guys a very, very brief example, right? So let's say the message I want to write is, hey, looks like you guys sell to XYZ to help them with ABC, right? Give them a couple of like examples to see what that looks like. Now, if I was to run a test, I can use the prospector. So here you can kind of choose like who you want to run a test to. And in this case, let's say I want to reach out to like a brand creative directors at Nike, right?
Right.
Run a test. So I should have done this beforehand. It's gonna take a little bit of time. Gonna analyze the instruction, read the product, read the example, and boom, here you go. Right? Seems like you guys sell to athletes and sports enthusiasts to help them buy shoes and athletic apparel online,
Wow.
right?
Right. And a quick
And then
question, a
obviously,
follow-up question here,
yeah,
Wesley. Would Octave also help you take a list of people of LinkedIn as a primary input? It's from the chat from Nathan. So can you take a list of people of LinkedIn as a primary input?
yes, you could. Yeah, so for the input, I believe you can do person on LinkedIn. Yeah, this is very similar to like self-navigator. So you can search for
Right.
the person on LinkedIn. Sometimes you only have like the company context, right? Let's say the person doesn't have like a LinkedIn profile. You can use that as well. So there's a lot of, I guess, like categories of input
Mm-hmm.
that you could use for Octave.
Understood. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, that is essentially the first tool for Octave. Next one is Clay, everybody's favorite. So again, I'm not gonna go into Clay. It's gonna take me like 5 hours to kind of walk you through every single thing that Clay can do. Um, the two of the most important thing you need to understand about Clay is number one, Clay is a workflow builder. It's like a programming language, right? Clay is not a data source.
Very
Clay
well
is not
put.
a data source.
Very well put.
The reason why I'm saying this is you don't know how many times I get people tell me like, hey, Clay data is very bad. Hey, Clay doesn't have the data that I'm looking for. And I'm just like, Clay is not gonna give you the data, right? Think Clay is like a third party, tool, like a middleman who can connect a bunch of like APIs and tools into one single platform that can help you like orchestrate your entire, like um funnel, basically.
Right.
So yeah, I want to give you like a very quick sample in Clay. So yeah, so let's say for this example, I got like a few companies, domains that I want to reach out, right?
Right.
Nike, Hilton, and Koi. I believe Koi is like a sunglasses company.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do here is you can see that I can actually plug in my Octave API in here, the
Right.
exact same agent that I built like a minute ago, right? And then I can just click run, right? What it would do is we use the company domain as an input, right? Does the research for me and then spit out with the message that I want to write, right? So remember earlier in Octave, I want the AI to say something like, hey, seems like you guys sell to XYZ to help them
Yes.
with ABC, right? Same idea, right? Seems like you guys sell to traveler, event planners to help them book rooms and earn reward points, right? You see right here, I don't have to use like another AI to tell it like browse the company website,
Yeah,
like
it's
browse the person's LinkedIn or whatever it might be,
straightforward.
right?
Yes.
Exactly. But if you want to do that, you could too, right? So
Right.
in Clay, if you want to go crazy with it, you can use the AI to like do some maybe research on like Reddit or whatever, and then you can plug in that information into Octave to give it more context,
Well,
right?
right.
But most of the time, I don't think it's necessary unless you want to go a bit crazy and do some experiment, feel free to do so. But other than that, Octave can take care of the rest. So you can see here that Clay basically helped me build out this entire workflow, right? I plug in the company's name. I use maybe another, like API to get the person's email, get the person's name. Octave helped me generate that message, and then I would directly plug that into Smartlead in my campaign.
Right.
That's what Clay does. It is a workflow builder. Yeah. Last but not least, Smartlead. Does anyone not know how to use Smartlead?
Let me know.
Good. You guys, that was a trap. But yeah, Smartlead can basically orchestrate everything else, warm up, outreach at scale, deliverability management, all that kind of stuff. So, um, been a huge fan of Smartlead for the past few years. And I think when I started my agency, there was a lot of different like outbound tools that was in the market and it was coming on the rise at the moment. Stuck with Smartlead because of its APIs feature. Got really, really powerful API. And that is essentially one of the secret features that I want to deep dive today when it comes to Smartlead. Like, how can you use the API to do a bunch of crazy stuff, right? But before that, let me just kind of like really speed run through a bunch of quote unquote best practices in Smartly that you should do, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be useful too. But when you set up a campaign, just make sure to send it through plain text, like no HTML, right? Turn off open tracking, only send about 10, 15 emails a day per inbox, that kind of stuff. No links, no videos. What else am I missing?
Thank you for that. I think we should make it a disclaimer for Smartlead. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Nothing.
speed run through a bunch of stuff. There's like a lot of different features that you need to, be careful for. But the craziest thing that why I'm such a huge fan is because of its API features. So, um, in the early days, obviously from like a software engineering background, I just love building automation around Smartly, right? I love to see how we could simplify things, right? Without having to do like a bunch of like manual stuff. And I believe a few months ago, you guys rolled out your first MCP features, right? And it wasn't being talked as much nowadays anymore. It was a huge thing when you guys rolled it out, but to me, honestly, it is very, very underused, when it comes to Smartly user. So one of the thing that I use the MCP the most for is really to see how my deliverability is doing, right? So I also want to give everyone like a realistic expectation when it comes to deliverability, right? Again, just to go back to like a few slide, infra is very important, right? If you send a bunch of email, you send a bunch of messages and none of them land in the inbox, then nothing else really matter, right?
True. Yep.
Now, from just running like thousands of campaigns for years after years, I sort of came to the realization that at some point or another, you will have some issue with deliverability. So just have that expectation. There's no, like email servers, there's no reseller can have something that is perfect for like forever, right?
Yep.
So for us to really quote unquote, like fight against deliverability is to really have some sort of backup option, right? Every marketing has something that they are fighting for, right? Ad agency, they fight with like, like Google policy and things like that. For outreach, go to market, cold email agency, one thing that we're constantly fighting for is deliverability, right? So told my team, you know what? Just have the expectation that at some point or another, you will have issue, right? So how can we be a bit more proactive when it comes to that? How can we be more proactive to see like what inbox, what infrastructure is doing well, and if they're not doing well, then we can go ahead and replace that, as soon as we can, right? And once you release MCP, that was a game changer for us. Again, not going to deep dive into how to like get things up, all that kind of stuff, but I want to show you an example of one of the clients that we did. So we basically build this MCP thing in Claude, right? We plug your API, a little bit of settings. So all we had to do is give us like a very brief prompt, right? Like, hey, this is my account, this is Motley, maybe look into like this client and tell me what is the 10 worst performing domains that is currently active in the campaigns when it comes to like reply rate, bounce rate, and email reputation, right? back then, like obviously it's very difficult to see like how many emails are getting replied, right? Let's say you got like an email that getting like 10 replies a day and then the other email getting like zero, the second one is bad. Like you would have to go through all of them to really identify that, right? Now you just plug that into Claude, ask you a very similar, very simple questions, and there you go. It tells me exactly what are the 10 worst performing domain in the last 30 days, right? This one only got 0.4%. This one got 0.8%. This one got 0.8. This one got 1.4, right? I'm looking at this. I know exactly what domain I need to replace, right? So what I do is obviously I use the backup inboxes, replacing this, maybe put this back into warm up, for like a month or so. And then guess what? I do it again next month. I see what are the worst 10 performing domain and I keep replacing it, right? So
Right.
very, very, very underused features, the MCP and its API. We're still exploring a bunch of different use cases of what we can do with this. But yeah, just wanted to give you a very, very good high level context on the capability of Smartlead's API. That's why I'm a huge fan. Been using it for 2 years. I think it's the best outreach tool out there.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, I want to keep it brief, keep it short. That is pretty much the end of what I have for today. So yeah, I know this is going to be Q&A next. So if you have any question, happy to really walk through it.
Wow. Short and sweet, perfect, on time for questions. And I have a couple of them on the chat, Wesley. Maybe I'll start with that. And folks, the floor is open for questions. If you have your question directly for Wesley, click on the react icon at the center bottom. You'll see an option to raise your hand. Click on that, turn on your video, and I'll spotlight you. But while we do that, one common question we've had on the chat, Wesley, is which tool do you use for lead enrichment? Because Octave, you mentioned, is for copywriting. Clay is your primary hub for connecting these tools, and Smartlead is for your cold email and analyzing how your mailbox is and your system is performing. But when it comes to lead enrichment, do you have recommendations and what tool do you use?
Yeah. Enrichment is very vague. So I'm assuming when you mention enrichment, you
I
think
mean for
of an
data. I
email
mean for data.
finder.
Right, finder, the lead finder, right? For leads,
Okay,
you have a
finder.
place.
Okay. Yeah, so for Lead Finder right now, we stuck with ICP, which is the first one, and then the second one is Lead Matching. So those are the two one. And I've tried a couple ones too, and they are very good products in the market, right? I think Better Contact is good too. Yeah, I think it just come down to like cost and whatever you prefer.
Makes sense. Fair enough. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Quickly, before I spotlight Sanjay, just quickly seeing if you have any other questions on the chat. So yeah, one interesting question. Why would you say Octave is better to create hooks than to write it in Clay with the GPT AI connected?
Ah, see, that's a great question, right?
Yep.
Octave is not better at writing hook. You know who's the best at writing hook? You are.
Right.
Right. So you cannot hope that Octave can write like a crazy hook that can get you like a lot of leads, right? It has to start
Exactly.
with you. It has to start with you,
Exactly.
right? And whatever message, whatever hook you wanted to write, you can instruct that in Octave, and then Octave will help you write the hook that is catered to whatever you're looking for, right? And I believe GPT can nowadays, I think with the latest model, you can do something very, very similar. But still, right? You use GPT, you use Octave, it has to start with you, right? If your prompt's not great, nothing can save you.
Understood. Completely understood. So next up is Sanjay. I'll quickly spotlight him. There you go, sir. If you can unmute yourself, please. There you go.
Hi. We are like fairly new to Smartlead, couple of months. We do it just for ourselves. We are not an agency. So when we try to source data using Clay and then get it enriched, and what we found is that if we scraped the Sales Navigator and then enriched it with the various tools like full enrich or drop contact, whatever, we get a very we get a lot more data and a high level of enrichment, right? If we use the same prompts on Clay, we used to get 50% of the data that you would get directly from Sales Navigator. So, and then we spoke to Sales Navigator as well, and they said that they restrict the geographies or whatever for various tools, So they because quite a lot of the source for Clay and all that is LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn knows all these things. So what's your take on this? And then combined with this, a connected question. Now, Smartlead has come with Smart Prospect, so we still haven't started using Smart Prospect. So that is a completely, a game changer. If it kind of works, it delivers the same level of contacts as a Sales Navigator or whatever. So these
Yeah.
are the kind of questions in my mind, and you as a professional would probably have all the answers. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for the question. And to be quite honest with you, I am honestly not a huge fan of Sales Navigator because of the same issue that you just mentioned, right? Just like restrictions, and usually we're not able to find a lot of data in Sales Nav compared to like some other tools. Now, let's say if your use case is going after directly people on LinkedIn or like whatever it might be, like some edge cases where you have to use Sales Navigator, then you just have to use Sales Navigator, right? But ultimately, what I would say is there are a lot of what we call like specialized databases out there, right? Maybe let's say you're going after other agencies, right? I can recommend you something like Clutch.co, right? That is a specialized database for agency, right? Apollo, Crunchbase are the huge one. If you're going after e-commerce, right, then there's like store leads, there's like still Crunchbase, that kind of stuff, right? So ultimately, there are a lot of what we call a specialized database. So there's not one single database that we consider like a one size fit all, if that makes sense. Apollo is a great data source right away. Most of the time, you could probably get away with something big like Apollo or Crunchbase, but if you really have to deep dive into something specialized, I would recommend looking into somewhere else. Yeah. And then I believe you have a follow-up question as well, something about losing a lot of data when you plug into Clay, right? I think that does remind me that when you use all of these like data enriching tool, one thing to really know, and this got me like a lot more leads after I realized this, is in Clay, when you plug in all that data enrichment tool, just make sure you also get the catch-all emails as well, right? So if we have time, I can probably give you like a live example. Let's go with ICP. If I walk email. You see this little button right here?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I turn this on and I kid you not, I go from like finding 50% data to like 80% more. So very sneaky. Make sure to turn it on. It might get you a lot more data. And to give you like a very brief explanation of what a catch-all email is, catch-all email is more of like not sure, like whether or not this is the right one. So you get good email, you get bad email, and you got, I don't know, somewhere in the middle, right? When you get those, I don't know, somewhere in the middle type of email, what you want to do is you want to plug off that into some sort of like cleanup tools like Bounce Band, for example, right? And it will be able to determine whether or not the ones that are in the middle could be used or not, right?
Lead
But
validation. Yeah.
yeah, turn this on, it's gonna find you tons more data.
And what about Smart Prospect?
That is so new that I don't have the answer for that. I think we just rolled it out earlier this week, so we're still
Yep.
trying it.
You should test it
Thank
out, Sanjay, and let us know how it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of new, so I think you should have access to it as well. Test it out. Let us know your feedback. Yes, thank you. I think Vishal had a question, but his hand seems to be down right now. Maybe he got it answered. But picking up a few from the chat, Wesley, mm, do you have any insight or insider POV to specific large complex enterprise SaaS selling? I can read it again.
So,
Any
yeah.
insight on insider POV specific to large complex enterprise SaaS selling?
What insight are you looking for? I know that they're very rich, so that's all I know. Um, some insight. let's see. A lot of the time when we go after big sort of like corporation and things like that,
Hmm.
one of our favorite, this is like the pros and cons, right? One of a favorite strategy is to actually go after like an IC or like a mid manager level position, senior team member to have them as like the champion for your product, right?
Right.
B2B sale is all about sort of like making connection,
Hmm.
right? Getting people to trust your product, especially if you're new, right?
Right.
The thing with big enterprises is they are not really open to try out new processes. They're not open to try out new system, right?
Right.
Compared to like smaller companies, right? Smaller companies, you can just go after the founder, they hop to the demo, they decide how they want to implement it, they'll buy what they want,
True.
right? Big enterprise, they might have something in place already. So yeah, one of my favorite strategies to go after the IC, get these people to try out your tool. If they like it, they might show it to their team. If the team like it, they will propose to the manager. And just from somebody who works at like huge corporation in the past, right?
Right.
We before we like bring in new tools, before we literally spend like like six, seven figures on something for the whole year, you would have to put together like a POC, like a proof of concept, propose that to the director propose that to the finance person, right? So the whole cycle like takes forever, right? So if you go in after like large enterprises, that is the con, right? The sales cycle will be longer, and that is the reality you might have to like face it. Like you just cannot go after the CEO, right? Sometimes it does work, right? Don't get me wrong. Like maybe it's like a multi-billion dollar company and somehow they got like 25 people, you can probably go after the CEO. But let's say
True.
they got like 1,000, 2,000 of employees, then yeah, you might have to go with that play.
100%. Makes sense. Thank you for that. And one more
Yeah.
question from Jacob Wesley is, what is a good, do you have any recommendations for a good B2B database with high buying intent for AI audits? What tools should I use for buying intent of a demand capture offers?
High buying intent for a
AI
demand.
audits. For AI audits, and what two questions. So, what is a good B2B database with high buying intent for AI audits? The
Yeah.
second question is, what tools should I use for buying intent of a demand capture offers?
Okay. So again, I don't have much context on what kind of product you are selling, right? But from what I just hear, a audit, I think one thing that come obvious to me is if you're not using any AI tool, then why the hell would it need an audit? Right? So my guess is you could probably use something like stacks. I know a lot of people are not a fan of some other like, like what is it, like tool research to kind of see like what tool the company built with, right? I know a lot of people are not a fan of built with, but their stack is good to see like what technology the company is using, right? And then if you're able to see whether or not the company is using some kind of like AI tools, then you can leverage that into your outreach copy, right? Like, hey, saw you've been using this tool, right? I'm guessing you're trying to find the right one, so let me do a quick audit for you, and I can, give you what to tell you like a good pointer on what to do.
Right.
Right?
So
Or you can even say something specifically like, hey, so using the tool, I know there are some like stuff that is not good about the tool. Would you agree? And then you can just carry on with the copy from there.
makes sense. And one last question from Namrata. So
Yeah.
to start with, clay seems like a very expensive option. Do you suggest any alternatives?
Um, Clay is expensive. There's a lot of ways that you can save costs, right? Like using like API, for example. But with that, you still have to maybe subscribe to like one of the middle tier before you can use that. Um, if cost really is one of your biggest concern, right? Then if you have to go through like the manual way, then you can just do that, right? You can just get like a
Right.
big list. You can just plug that into, like Mullin Verifier. You can plug that into ICP to enrich your data, something like that, right? Then you download the clean sheet and you plug that into another tool. So it might take some time to do. So you're basically trading out, right? Do you,
Right.
like rather to save time or you rather save cost?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then I also know there are a lot of clay competitors out there as well. I don't, like explore that territory that often, but I'm pretty sure you can find something that might be a little bit more affordable than clay.
Makes sense. Awesome. Question for me: what are the sources of smart prospect, etc.? So, Sanjay, we actually have a document on that as to how we get the data, who the data is from, etc. Let me shoot it to you on an email or on LinkedIn. Hi Akash, hi Wesley. Thank you for all the information. My question is, Wesley, in your experience, how does deliverability reputation differ from custom SMTP setups compared to Google Workspace? So I think it's basically, do you see any deliverability differences between SMTP versus Google Workspaces?
Yeah, great question. So this is my personal mindset, right? My personal mindset is you find something it works, stick with it, right? And if you are a founder, this is gonna apply to every single aspect of your business, right? If you find something that works, don't mess around. Don't try to like exploring different stuff. Like, yes, you should still have maybe somebody like exploring different options just in case it goes down, but don't try to roll out like a bunch of new things to replace something that does work,
Yep,
right?
100%.
I know a lot of agencies are heavily relying on like an SMTP server like Hypertie or like some other ones. We use like Mission Inbox like for some of our customers too, and that proven to work quite well. But I think ultimately I'm huge fan of just using Gmail, like Google. Right.
Awesome.
The reason for that is I think we've done like some sort of like analysis to kind of see like how many email you can go from like Google to Google, Google to Outlook, SMTP to Google, whatever it might be, right? And if you really want to micro optimize everything, right, then sure, right, go Google to Google, Outlook to Outlook, right? But if you comparing Outlook to Outlook, let's say you get like, like 3% reply rate, and Google to Outlook, let's say you get like 2.7% reply rate, right? Like, yes, it is better, but does it really, like do you really want to like have a bunch of like different steps when it comes to setting up just for that like
Zero.
0.03% better?
100% makes a lot of sense because we talk to a lot of people as well. As you know,
Yeah,
Wesley, multiple people have multiple things working, right? Some people say
yeah,
SMTP doesn't, but for some people, they're getting results on that. And I think to your
exactly.
point, maybe experiment until you find something that's working for you. But when you
For you.
find something that's working for you, don't go ahead and replace that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that.
I would
And
say
yeah,
I would say if you're like a founder from like a company and you just want to run outreach for yourself, like yeah, you should explore a bunch of stuff, right? Have multiple setup, really try to optimize what works for like each individual ESP.
mhm,
But if you're like an agency owners where you're running email for like a bunch of different clients, yeah, just find one or two things that does work and just run with it.
stick to it. Yeah, lovely. One question from Ankush. Can we reach out to dentist slash healthcare professionals who are already problem aware? I work in a dental marketing agency. They only use paid ads, ad budget 50K per month. They tried cold emailing in past, but didn't work out for them. So what would you recommend? Should I try it again for them?
Can we reach out to dentists, healthcare who already have PromoWare? So they basically are running some kind of ads already and they want to save some costs on the ads. Why not? Right. I've run a few I've run a few campaigns for dentists already. I'm not a huge fan of going after dentists, but if that is your niche, then like go for it. Right. I'm sure you can find a tool that can get you all of dentists and you can find a tools that can see like what kind of ads they are running, right? Like that might be a bit more expensive, but maybe an
Mhm.
easier way that you can do it is see if they have like a lot of reviews, see how they have a lot of, like customer coming in, right? And you can, I don't know so much about like the dentist market, but like the fact that they have a lot of, reviews might give you a good indication that whether or not they're running ads, right? Yeah, you can find a tool that pinpoint exactly whether they're running ads, but if not, you can kind of use other data that can help you make like an educated guess.
Right. Awesome. One more question. What's the ideal sending volume per mailbox per day for consistent deliverability when scaling cold email?
Hmm. I'm a very conservative person, so okay, I'll give you like a simple answer and a more complicated answer than what we do as an agency. So I know a lot of people they're a fan of doing like 20 to like 25 email per day. I would say if you really want to push it, then yeah, I wouldn't want to go anything past like 20, 25 email per day. For us, we are very conservative, so we stick around 10 email per day. And just to go an extra mile, we build an automation. It's exactly why I love Smartlead to be able to randomize it. So someday we send 8, someday we send 9, someday we send 10, someday we send 11, right? So 8 to 12 is our range, and we just randomize that every single day, right? Because if
Right.
Google look into how much you're sending a day and they're like, huh, this guy's sending exactly 10 every single day, it's very easy to spot, right? So we
True.
randomize it.
Makes sense. And how many emails per sequence do you recommend before giving up on a lead? What's the ideal time gap between
Yeah.
follow-ups?
Yeah. Say two. Two is the sweet spot that you want to go after. You One thing about email that I love is you can always retarget after a few months, right? You bother the crap out of somebody, they're gonna tell you like, hey man, it's been 5 email, you should back off, right? But if they don't reply to you like after the second email, just leave them alone for a while, the next month, the second month. I can guarantee you that they will not remember your first email, right? Just send another message. And that could be your quote unquote like third follow-up, but they seeing as like the first time you're sending it, right? And by this time, hopefully you'll be able to iterate a lot of messages, iterate through a lot of like strategy, and you know what
Right.
works, you know.
Awesome. Next question is from Brexton, just trying to figure out the specifics of using Octave. At the moment, I plug in a list of ICP URLs into seamless.ai, filter based on certain job titles, and then export the email list and run it through an email verifier like Rion before uploading the list into Smartlead. Would Octave replace any of my current workflow on pulling the leads slash emails, or would Octave only be for the copywriting piece?
Okay, let me read that one more time. So plug in into Seamless AI, filter based on job title, and export on the email list and run it through an email verifier. This Octave can replace any of that workflow. So what Octave does is it's like a research agent, right? Research on your ICP to see whether or not like you can determine if it's qualified, and then as a big cherry on top, it will personalize your copy based on the research, right? So from what I'm seeing right now, it could probably replace something like Seamless AI to filter out a certain job title, maybe, but it cannot export with an email list. I don't think Octave can, like clean the data for you, that kind of stuff. So no. Maybe in the future it could. I talked to Zach, their CEO, and they have like a lot of like interesting roadmap. So perhaps in the future, but at the moment, I don't think it could.
Right. Just checking for more questions. Where do you get email address? I believe Marco is asking where you get your leads from.
Bunch of stuff, right? Apollo, yeah, Crunchbase, depending on what industry you want to go after.
Krithi, I believe this would vary based on industries, based on whom you're trying to sell to. Because the question is, I work in solar lead generation. I just started my company. What is the best scripts to use in 2025?
It was so the best script to use in 2025. Oh man, there's like a bunch of like copy session out there, so I'll let you rewatch some of those sessions. But yeah, hey, get to the point, avoid the jargons, right? Talk about the pain point, make sure it's relevant to them, and give them like a crazy good offer. That's the script.
Absolutely.
The
And
short,
one
keep
last
it.
point to add would be this ideology that every expert I've spoken to is if you receive a mobile notification, would you read it? Is the point that you'd also want to go for, right? So don't make it too big, less than 80 words, and whatever Wesley said.
Um, yeah, one of the biggest trick that I tell my team when it comes to copywriting is don't sit around a computer like 24 hours trying to come up with a good copy. You're not going to be able to do it, right?
True.
Write a version, get on your phone, get on your mobile, walk around the house, right? Say it out loud. Like,
Absolutely.
and then think to yourself, is it something I would tell a friend at like a bar, right? And if you sound like, hey, it's been a good day. I would hope that, you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Does it sound like something you would maybe like tell a girl at the bar? If the answer is no, it's probably a bad copy, right? Think,
Absolutely.
how can you adjust that? Go back to the computer, write it, go out, take a walk, speak it out loud, and do it again.
Awesome. And one last question, any tip for keeping up email reputation? I think Wesley had this answer, which is keep the best practices going. Don't screw up there. And I think you should have no problems, right? And also,
Yeah.
if you feel you're having problems, good to have a check, run a deliverability
Yeah.
test, see how your domains are, and then maybe you should go ahead.
Exactly. Keeping up reputation is all Smartlead. There's just a bunch of features that can help you with it. So yeah.
Awesome. Wesley, I think we've come to the end. No more questions on the chat, no more hands raised. So I think we're parting ways in a couple of minutes. But thank you so much. Super insightful, super simple. I think this is the earliest we started Q&A in quite some time. So thank you for keeping it simple. It's not just the tools you use, it was also the whole conversation today. But thank you for taking the time. Anything before we end, sir?
Yeah, of course. No, thank you so much for having me. Any other question, feel free to send me a connection on LinkedIn. I don't usually check it like every single day, but if you have a question, let me know. I'll get to it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And folks, Smart Prospects is out. Check it out, try it out, see how it's going. And Sanjay, sir, I will send you the information of everything you asked for, right? But folks, as always, thank you so much for taking the time. As you all know, 3 consistent things in life: death, taxes, and office hours every Thursday. I'll see you on the next one. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.